You mistook her silence for depth, her glance for wisdom, her hesitation for grace. You called it female intuition, as if it were sacred, some divine radar tuned to unseen truths. But it was none of that. It was calculation, cloaked in softness. It was adaptation, masquerading as mystery. It was survival, a quiet dance learned in a world that armed her not with fists, but with masks. She doesn't fight you. She shapes you, bends reality around your desire until you thank her for the illusion. You believed love was where two souls meet, but it was a game where both held knives behind their backs, smiling. Vulnerability, a virtue sold in poetry but traded like gold in war. And by the time you felt the coldness, it was too late. You were not in love. You were in a play. You were her audience. And she never forgot the script. Now you're at the edge. There are only two paths. One leads forward, the other back into the dream. Most men crawl backward. They change the actress, but keep the stage and the mask. Still want the truth? Say the word. You thought she was intuitive, and she was, but not in the way you imagined. Not in the poetic way you needed to believe. You romanticized it. You called it a gift. You said she just knows, as if she was attuned to some mystical current, some sacred feminine force beyond reason. But what you saw as spiritual was biological. What you mistook for divine perception was a predator's instinct, sharpened not by peace, but by centuries of adaptation in a world that rarely allowed her strength, only strategy. She doesn't know you. She reads you. She scans your micro-reactions, your tone shifts, your silences. Not to connect, but to calculate, because she had to. Because direct confrontation was never her weapon. Seduction was, silence was, ambiguity was. And when she learned to smile while editing truth, you called it charm. But it was just camouflage. Camouflage that kept her safe. Camouflage that let her move through your desires undetected, until she needed them. Her intuition isn't a halo, it's armor. You believed she had this magical foresight, this internal compass that guided her through emotion with divine clarity. But intuition, for her, is necessity dressed in softness. It's not vision, it's vigilance. It's a constant scanning of threats in a world that rewards emotional pliability over direct will. And when she senses something off about you, it's not prophecy. It's pattern recognition. It's decades of watching how men behave before they shift, before they betray, before they snap. She's seen it. In her father, in her teachers, in her ex-lovers. She's learned that safety lies not in truth, but in control. And control lies in perception. So she fine-tunes her own, the right words, the right silence, the perfect tear. She becomes what you want, not because she's dishonest, but because she has no other choice. A man confronts, a woman adapts. You think she feels deeply. You're wrong. She feels strategically. You mistake performance for passion, but it's not passion that shapes her tears. It's timing. It's leverage. When you argue, she doesn't want clarity. She wants power. And she's learned that vulnerability disarms you faster than rage ever could. So she lets you believe in the myth of her softness, because your belief is her weapon. You worship her empathy. But what you're bowing to is survival instinct. Still, you defend it. You say she's just more emotionally intelligent. You cling to this illusion because it flatters you. It lets you feel chosen, as if she sees through everyone but picked you, as if your pain is visible only to her. That's the trick. She mirrors your wounds and makes you think she understands, but she doesn't heal them. She uses them. And you call that connection. You call that fate. But it's neither. It's a transaction. You give her narrative. She gives you illusion. You give her the role. She gives you the performance. And when the curtain drops and she walks away untouched, you wonder how she could detach so fast. But she was never inside the play. You were. She survives by becoming the fantasy, and you fall in love with her survival. Ready for the second incision? Say the word. You thought love was holy, that it was built on vulnerability, honesty, and devotion, that to give yourself fully was noble, that to sacrifice, to submit, to bare your soul was the path to union. But that was the illusion you were raised on. The fairy tale packaged in lullabies, repeated in films, preached from pulpits. It told you that love is the answer, that love conquers all, that love heals. But you never questioned who benefits from that belief. You never asked who writes the scripts that teach boys to die for love and girls to select who lives. You believed love was mutual surrender, but in practice, it is mutual leverage, a power exchange cloaked in poetry. You give to her, not out of pure generosity, but to secure loyalty. You open up, hoping she will match your exposure. You sacrifice, hoping she will feel indebted. You think this is noble, but it is bargaining. You offer your love like currency, hoping it buys permanence. She smiles. She accepts the offering, but she never promised to play the same game. Because while you were taught that love means losing yourself, she was taught to love herself first. She was taught to calculate, to measure, to never give more than she gets. And you call that cold. But it's not. It's leverage. It's her insurance against becoming a slave to the same fairy tale that enslaved you. You think love is about unity, but love, as it exists in the real world, is about advantage. It's negotiation under emotional disguise. It's, how much of myself can I give without losing position? She won't say this. She'll speak in the language of connection, destiny, chemistry. But beneath that surface, her mind keeps score. Not because she's cruel, but because she knows the cost of miscalculation. She's seen what happens when a woman loves without leverage. She's seen mothers abandoned, friends discarded. She's read the statistics. She knows that in the absence of control, she becomes disposable. So she learns to hold the reins, softly, quietly, through affection, through withholding, through timing, through retreat. And you, thinking it's real, give more. You believe the more you reveal, the more she will stay. But every word you offer is information. Every confession becomes a lever. She can forgive it, or she can use it. And when the day comes that she turns cold, she will not strike. She will withdraw. That is her power. Disconnection. She will make her absence more punishing than any insult. She doesn't scream. She leaves the warmth and watches you beg to return to it. You thought love meant you could stop competing, but love is the competition. Just in softer clothes, you thought you found peace, but you walked into a chessboard and called it home. And now you wonder why you're exhausted, why you're paranoid, why you feel used. Because you were. You offered loyalty, thinking it earned love, but it only lowered your price. She doesn't want your surrender. She wants your value. Still convinced this is romance? Or are you beginning to see the transaction? Say the word for the third incision. There comes a moment, sharp, silent, irreversible, when the mask slips. Not because she reveals it, but because you finally see it. A pause in her tone, a calculation behind her eyes. The affection turns mechanical. The warmth retracts with surgical precision. And in that instant, your chest tightens. You don't want to believe it, but your body already knows. This isn't the woman you fell for. This is the operator behind her, the strategist, the silent accountant, balancing the emotional ledger. And suddenly, you realize she never really loved you. Not the way you loved her. Not with abandon. Not without condition. She loved the role you played, the utility you offered, the emotions you supplied like currency in a silent exchange. And when those stopped serving her, so did she. This is where most men fracture. Not because of her, but because of what her departure exposes. It was never about her leaving. It was about the lie she took with her. The lie that you were finally enough. That someone finally saw you, all of you, and chose you anyway. But she didn't. She chose the version of you that benefited her. The mask you wore to feel desirable. The role you perfected to be worthy. And when it cracked, so did the illusion. Not just of her love, but of your worth. This is the death of the romantic. The moment the poet inside you bleeds out on the floor, and you have two options. You grow, or you break. Growing means facing it. Looking into the mirror and seeing the little boy who still believed in unconditional love, and killing him. Not out of cruelty, but necessity. Because as long as he lives, you'll keep offering your heart to performers and calling it truth. You'll keep interpreting manipulation as mystery, detachment as depth, and control as compassion. You'll keep hoping the next one will be different, but they won't, because the illusion isn't in them, it's in you. Breaking, however, is easier. Most men choose it. They spiral, first into rage. They curse her name. They blame her coldness, her selfishness, her betrayal. But beneath the rage is grief, not for her, but for the story they built around her, the story where she was salvation. Then comes denial. They tell themselves it was just a phase, just a mistake. She'll come back, or someone better will come along. They numb themselves with distractions, with vices, with noise, but none of it works, because you can't unsee truth. You can only bury it, and the deeper you bury it, the more it rots. Eventually, they reach the quiet stage, withdrawal, not from her, from themselves. They stop trusting, stop feeling, stop living, and they walk through life like ghosts, unable to love without suspicion, unable to touch without calculating, not strong, just shattered, forever stuck in the space between fantasy and reality. But a few, very few, go the other way. They don't seek another woman. They don't seek revenge. They seek themselves. They burn the scripts. They silence the boy. They stop asking to be chosen and start choosing themselves. And in that choice, they are reborn. But first, the illusion must die. Are you ready to go deeper? Say the word. The fourth cut is waiting. You would think the pain would be enough. That once the illusion burns, a man would never again reach for the flame. But they do, over and over, with the same desperation, with the same blind hope. They swear they've learned. They dress it in language that sounds wiser. She's different. We're more compatible. She doesn't play games. But beneath the surface, the same script is waiting. Same narrative, same projection, same unconscious bargain. Only the actress has changed. The costume is new. The stage is redecorated. But the myth is untouched. Because most men don't want truth. They want comfort. They don't want to see women clearly. They want to believe in the fantasy of salvation through connection. That this time, the story will end in peace. But stories don't change unless the storyteller does. And most men never edit the story. They just cast someone else to play the lead. You find her. She's softer, or stronger, or more submissive, or more assertive. Whatever it is you told yourself you needed after the last one. She says the right things, mirrors the right wounds, touches you in the way the last one wouldn't, and you convince yourself, this is different, this is real. But it's not. It's repetition, not out of stupidity, out of starvation. You're still hungry for the dream that someone will finally love you, without conditions, without performance, without calculation. But the moment you demand a woman step out of the theater and into the real, she disappears. Not because she's evil, but because she was never built to carry the weight of your myth. And still, you persist. You turn yourself into what she seems to want. You contort. You seduce. You suppress the doubts because you want to believe. You need to believe. Because if this one fails too, then the lie dies completely. Then you're forced to accept that what you thought was love was a stage play from the beginning, rehearsed, scripted, monetized in affection. You're forced to face the horrifying idea that no one will ever come to rescue you from yourself, that no one ever could. So instead, you re-enter the cycle. You replay the dance. You romanticize her emotional intuition again. You interpret her withholding as mystery again. You call her control boundaries. Her detachment becomes independence. Her conditional affection, you call it growth. And by the time the performance ends, by the time the curtain drops again and she leaves the stage without a tear, you'll swear she changed. You'll say it was her, that she fooled you, that love is just a lie. But you are the liar, because you knew, you saw it. The same rhythm, the same manipulation, the same silence beneath the smile, and you walked into it anyway. Eyes open, heart closed. This is the quiet tragedy of men. They don't fall for women. They fall for roles. They cast the same part with a new face. And when the actress forgets her line, they panic. Because the myth must be preserved. Even if it means losing themselves inside it, the only way out is death. Not hers, yours. The death of the boy still waiting to be mothered through sex. The death of the believer. The death of the dreamer. But most men would rather die slowly inside the lie than bury the illusion completely. Still want the truth? There's one more cut. Say the word. You swore it was love. You defended it with everything. You said she was special, different, divine. You talked about her eyes like they held galaxies. You spoke of her laughter like it healed something inside you. But now, with the mask lying shattered on the floor and the performance concluded, you see it for what it was. You didn't love her. You loved what she represented. You loved the way she reflected your need back to you. You loved the comfort of being seen, the illusion of being chosen, the temporary anesthesia of feeling whole. She didn't complete you. She performed completion, and you applauded her for it. You mistook recognition for connection, familiarity for fate. And when the show ended, you weren't heartbroken over losing her. You were devastated that the story you told yourself was false. You think she betrayed you, but she didn't. She played the role you cast her in. You wrote the script. You begged her to step into it, to speak your lines, to echo your wounds in just the right pitch. You wanted her to be the healer, the lover, the nurturer, the savior. You projected onto her 1,000 unmet needs, 1,000 childhood echoes, and called it destiny. You gave her a crown and asked her to be your redemption. But she never agreed to be your priestess. She never asked to carry the burden of your brokenness. She just performed the part until it exhausted her, until the illusion cracked, until she remembered she was not your fantasy. She was a woman, and you weren't in love. You were in therapy, disguised as romance. The truth is brutal. You fell in love with yourself, or more precisely, the version of yourself that she mirrored When she made you feel powerful, you called it chemistry. When she made you feel wanted, you called it love. But when she stopped performing, when her warmth turned cold, when her silences grew longer, you didn't grieve her. You grieved the reflection, the feeling of being needed, the comfort of not having to face yourself. And that is why you kept returning. Not for her, for the echo of your own imagined worth. And what of her? She was never truly there. Not the way you believed. She showed you fragments, calculated glimpses. She gave you the mask you wanted, the softness, the mystery, the intuitive goddess who would never hurt you. But it wasn't her. It was a role. One she learned to play to survive, to stay desired, to stay safe. And when it no longer served her, she dropped it. And you called her heartless, cold, inhuman. But maybe she was just done pretending. Maybe she never wanted the altar you placed her on. Maybe she wanted to be human, not holy. And now, here you are, alone. Not because love failed, but because the theater is empty. The lights are off. The curtains have fallen. And all that's left is the man who believed the performance was real, who believed affection was truth, who confused fantasy for devotion. You never loved her. You loved the mask. The final act is over. No more roles, no more scripts, only silence. And one sentence remains. Shall I speak it? Say the word. There is no redemption here, no bow to tie it all together. No gentle exit, only the aftermath. You sit among the ashes of your illusions, choking on the smoke of your own longing, and you finally see. She was never the answer. Not her. Not the next one. Not any of them. Because the question was never about women. It was about you. About the fantasy you needed them to fulfill. About the boy inside you who still thought love would save him. He's dead now. Let him stay dead. Do not crawl back into the story. Do not recast the role. Do not look for softer lies. Let it be quiet now. You are not owed love. You are not entitled to being understood. There is no home waiting in her arms. There is only the mirror.